The first punch landed on polished glass, not a fist, but a receipt. Victor Thorne stared at the printed numbers, $250,000 as transferred, gone. His son's signature, digitized and cold, floated above the amount. Elijah was 19. He was a trust fund inheritor, not a thief. Victor knew the difference. He had built this house, this empire, from nothing. This $250,000 was a message, scrawled in blood and entitlement. The bedroom was empty. Not just empty of Elijah, but empty of the personality Victor had tried to install. The custom Italian suits, the limited edition vinyl, the $8,000 ergonomic desk. All gone. It wasn't a tantrum. It was an evacuation. Victor reached into his pocket. Not for a phone, for a device the size of a cigarette lighter, black, ceramic, heavy. He pressed the small, ridged activation button. A pinpoint blue light flashed once, then died. Active. He moved. The clock was running. Elijah would be 10 hours ahead, a continent away, burning through that cash. Victor strode out of the pristine wing and into the main corridor, his footsteps echoing on the marble his wife had insisted upon. Marble. It always felt cold, like a cemetery. He found Cassandra in the sunroom sipping tea. She looked up, her expression a fragile mask of practiced calm that shattered instantly under his gaze. "He's gone," Victor said. No question, no preamble. Cassandra lowered the cup, placing it deliberately on the saucer. The clink was the loudest sound in the house. "Who, Victor? Are we talking about another defection from the board?" "Elijah, the baby, your little genius. He cleaned out his emergency fund. He left a receipt on his desk. $250,000, Cassandra. It's not a night out." Her composure finally cracked. "It's not an emergency fund. It's an insult. You give him the world, then chain him to your expectations. He needed freedom, Victor. You suffocated him. Freedom costs. And that money wasn't meant for a joyride to Ibiza. It was for a real emergency, like a kidnapping." Victor watched her face. No panic, just a deep, ingrained exhaustion. He knew then that she had known. "Did you help him?" The question was quiet, a whisper of ice in the sterile air. Cassandra stood up, wrapping her arms around her thin silk robe. "I am his mother. I gave him advice. Advice on how to steal from his own trust. Advice on how to defy the only man who can keep him solvent for the next 50 years. Advice on how to breathe," she snapped back. "You treated him like a corporate acquisition. You groomed him for the CEO chair from the crib. He's 19, Victor, not a takeover bid." Victor didn't argue the point. Argument was weakness. Control was power. "The watch," he said, changing direction abruptly. "Did he take the titanium watch?" Cassandra paused. Her eyes darted away, just for a second, to the French doors, then back. "I don't know. The one you had personalized. Why?" He hated that heavy thing. "Because it's indestructible. Because it also contains a microtransmitter, a power cell, and a mic with a directional gain strong enough to pick up a whisper at 20 feet. I gave it to him 3 weeks ago. Insurance." Cassandra stared, aghast. "You wired your own son?" "I wired my investment," Victor corrected, his voice flat. "$250,000 says he ran. The watch says I find him. Now tell me the truth, Cassandra. Which direction? East or west?" She sank back onto the chaise lounge. "I don't know the final plan. I helped him get a burner phone. I gave him access to a temporary holding account, that's all. He said he needed to be untraceable before he met his contact." "The contact?" Victor keyed a number on his phone, a secure military-grade satellite connection, and spoke into it low and fast. "TrackWatch serial T99. High priority. No alerts. Report directly to this line." He hung up before the acknowledgement. He turned back to his wife, his focus absolute. "Who is the contact, Cassandra?" She shook her head. "A name. A ghost. Someone who could get him access to a legal strategy." Victor's mouth twisted. Legal strategy. He's running away, not filing for divorce. He's barely legal himself. He wants emancipation, Victor. He wants the trust fund fully accessible. He said you were a prison guard. He said this contact promised a way out. Her voice was a strained wire, about to snap. "A path to ruin," Victor muttered. He paced the room, the expensive Persian rug muffling his furious steps. This wasn't about the money. This was about deception. He was Victor Thorne. No one, least of all his own flesh and blood, got to play him for a fool. The phone vibrated. T-99 location pinged Istanbul, Sabiha Gökçen International Airport, 10 hours and 57 minutes. A quick, brutal pace. Victor walked over to the built-in media system, bypassed the security protocols with a familiar sequence, and linked the T-99's audio feed. The light on the ceramic device in his hand turned solid blue. "He's in Istanbul," Victor announced, his eyes fixed on the blank screen. "And I'm listening," the speakers hissed, then crackled with the sharp, distorted noise of a bustling crowd, a polyglot mix of foreign languages, the roar of a jet engine, and the flat, tinny announcement of a boarding gate. Elijah was moving, fast. Victor turned the volume up, drowning out the ambient noise of their perfect, isolated mansion. Cassandra covered her ears, her face pale. "Turn it off, Victor. This is sick. It's a violation." "No," he said, eyes narrowed. "It's information. And you just gave me the context, emancipation, which means this contact is a lawyer, a predator." The chaotic airport noise suddenly compressed, focused as the directional mic homed in. Elijah must have stopped in a quieter spot. Victor held his breath. The sound that came through was clearer now, a nervous intake of air, the rustle of a jacket, and then Elijah's voice. Young, arrogant, slightly breathless. "Yeah, I made the transfer. $250. It's sitting in the holding account." "Is that enough to secure the first phase?" A new voice entered the feed, deep, resonant, with an accent Victor instantly recognized, a polished, slightly clipped British cadence that spoke of old money and ruthless ambition, not a lawyer, something worse. "Phase 1 is secured, Elijah. The filing has been prepped. The moment you are off foreign soil and in U.S. jurisdiction, we drop the bomb. Your father will be notified legally. The injunction will freeze the rest of the trust, pending review of your hostile environment claims. But no, 250,000 is not enough." Victor's fingers tightened on the ceramic device, threatening to crush it. Hostile environment. The words were a calculated strike, aimed directly at his legacy. Elijah sounded suddenly fragile. "But you said that was the contingency fee. What changed?" "The complexity changed, kid," the British voice said, a dry chuckle following. "Your father is Victor Thorne. He fights dirtier than anyone. We need collateral to keep the sharks away until the initial hearing. We need another 500,000, and we need the evidence." Evidence. Victor Thorne's mind went instantly cold. What did Elijah think he had? Just running away wasn't enough for emancipation. He needed proof of abuse, neglect, or something darker. Elijah whispered, "I brought the ledger." The blood drained from Victor's face. Cassandra gasped, a hand clamped over her mouth. The ledger, the thick leather-bound book he kept locked in the safe behind the bookshelf in the study. Not the financial ledger. The other one. The one detailing the contingency funds, the shadow transfers, the quiet payments made to keep certain very specific mistakes buried deep in the past. The British voice was suddenly eager. "The original, excellent. You are a genius, Elijah. Bring it out. Let me see the transfers from 08 and 14. Specifically, the line items for Project Chimera." Victor lurched forward, gripping the edge of the console. The names, the years. Project Chimera. That name was locked deeper than any vault. It was a phantom, an institutional memory he had personally purged from every active server 10 years ago. Cassandra! The safe! Did you? Victor started, his voice a ragged snarl. I didn't. I swear, I haven't been in your study in months. She was weeping now, her denial sharp and convincing. I helped him get a phone, not your secrets, Victor. The sound through the speakers intensified, a leather book being opened, pages rustling, the British man's breath hitched in a sound of pure avarice. My God, Elijah, this is spectacular. This is not just emancipation, this is a complete corporate takeover. This is the leverage to make your father irrelevant. We proceed. Meet me at the address I texted you. Bring the ledger. This audio, though, son, is still too volatile. Turn off whatever you're using. No more open communication until we're face to face. A slight metallic click echoed through Victor's living room. The airport noise cut out entirely. Silence. The audio feed was dead. Victor stood motionless, the tiny ceramic device burning a hole in his palm. He had wired his son, expecting a petulant confession, a plea for money, or the coup of a girlfriend. He got a roadmap to his own corporate execution. He got the name of the traitor. Project Chimera. The words tasted like ash. It wasn't the British voice that haunted him, nor the $750,000 demand. It was the memory associated with those two words. An accident, a clean-up, and a secret that involved a lot more than just money. Victor slowly lowered the device. He looked at Cassandra, who was curled up, shaking, her fragile calm utterly destroyed. "The contact," Victor said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "Tell me the name of the man who promised him a legal strategy, Cassandra." She lifted her tear-streaked face. He only told me a code name, a family joke," he said. "He called him the Architect." Victor closed his eyes. The Architect. He knew the Architect. He hadn't just wired his son. He had provided the listening device for a man he had thought was dead for 10 years. Victor opened his eyes. The time for finding Elijah was over. The time for destruction had begun. "The Architect," Victor whispered, a thin, cruel smile stretching his lips. "He is one of us, Cassandra. And now he's coming for us all. The game has changed." He turned back to the console and started typing. No more tracking. Now, surveillance. He needed the Architect's location. He needed the proof of Project Chimera. He needed to know exactly how much damage this recording was going to inflict. He had to assume the Architect had copied the ledger. He reached for the secure line again, not to track, but to mobilize. This wasn't a family drama anymore. It was a corporate war, launched by his own son, and the only weapon he possessed was the very audio that had just confirmed his greatest fear. The search result for the Architect's last known corporate registration flashed across the screen. Insolvent. Disappeared. Officially deceased. Victor scrolled down. A postscript in the system notes, a file labeled Non-Financial Assets Disposal. The date? 3 weeks ago. Coincidentally, the day Victor had given Elijah the titanium watch. Victor's hand trembled. The Architect hadn't just appeared. He had been lying in wait. He hadn't recruited Elijah. He had manipulated him from the shadows, using the very item Victor had intended as a leash. Victor pushed the console away, the ceramic device now resting innocently on the polished surface. He looked at Cassandra. She was staring at the space where the sound had come from, terrified not of Victor, but of the ghosts he had just resurrected. "He's not after emancipation, Cassandra. He's after everything," Victor stated, the realization a physical blow. "Elijah is the bait, the ledger is the trigger, and that Architect, he doesn't want money. He wants my company. He wants the fall." Victor checked the location of the safe again. Empty. The ledger was gone. He had less than 24 hours before the legal bomb dropped. He had to move faster than the architect. He walked past Cassandra, who made no move to stop him. He was already gone, his mind focused entirely on the audio recording. It was a map, a confession, a threat. He went to his study, not to grieve the theft, but to access the server logs. He had a transcript of the conversation now, but the raw audio was the key. He needed to analyze the background noise, the subtle inflections, the echo signatures. He sat down at his desk, the cold steel comforting under his fingertips. He pulled up the encrypted file where the audio from the T-99 watch was stored. Thorn, E10-21-26, WAV. He hit play. The familiar chaos of the airport returned. Elijah's voice, then the architect's smooth cadence. Victor listened to the exchange about the $750,000 demand. He listened to the word emancipation. He listened to the reference to Project Chimera. But this time, he listened differently. He put on noise-cancelling headphones and ran a spectral analysis on the background noise. Beneath the din of jet engines and foreign chatter, a new sound emerged, almost inaudible on the first pass, a specific, repetitive clicking. 3 clicks, pause, 2 clicks, pause, 3 clicks. Victor recognized it instantly. Morse code. It was a transmission signal, not from the watch, from something else in the room with Elijah and the architect. He isolated the signal and ran a decryption routine. It took 3 agonizing minutes. When the text appeared on the screen, Victor Thorn felt a cold dread, settled deeper than any fear of corporate ruin. The message was short, a single sentence, repeated once. Meet at Safe House Gamma. Cassandra is the key. Victor ripped the headphones off. Cassandra, his wife, the woman who claimed only to have helped him get a burner phone, the woman who knew the code name The Architect because Elijah had called it a family joke. He walked out of the study, the silence of the house suffocating. He found her still on the chaise lounge, staring blankly ahead. Safe House Gamma, Victor said, standing over her. Do you know where that is, Cassandra? She didn't react. It's the one I set up 10 years ago, Victor continued, his voice devoid of emotion. The one with the fully shielded basement. The one where I had the evidence of Project Chimera disposed of. Cassandra finally looked up, her face a mask of complete and utter defeat. You knew, Victor stated. You knew the architect wasn't a lawyer. You didn't just help Elijah run. You helped him betray me. You are the key. He stared at his wife, the mother of his son, and a cold certainty settled in his gut. The audio had not just destroyed the family, it had revealed the true enemy. The architect isn't after the company, Victor whispered. He's after you. He activated the T-99 device one last time, selecting the continuous record function. He didn't need to know what they were saying now. He needed to know what they were planning. He needed the sound of the ultimate betrayal. He needed to hear his own destruction. Victor walked towards the front door. I'm going to find the architect, and I'm going to bring the police with me. Not for corporate theft, Cassandra. For what happened 10 years ago. For Project Chimera. Cassandra finally spoke, her voice hollow. It was the only way to save Elijah. To save us. You already lost us, Victor said, opening the massive front door. Now, we find out what he promised you in exchange for Project Chimera. He stepped outside into the cold night air, the ceramic device now sitting on the mantelpiece, listening. He left Cassandra alone with the ghosts and the silence. The recording had just exposed a deeper conspiracy than a simple runaway, and Victor Thorn was about to learn how the most dangerous betrayal always came from the people locked inside your home. The audio feed began to record the deep, echoing silence of the abandoned mansion. The only sound, Cassandra's shuddering, broken breath. Victor was gone. The hunt for the architect and the truth about Project Chimera was on, and the destruction of the Thorne family was being broadcast live into an encrypted file in his study. The millionaire baby had run, but the mic had stayed. It was listening to the aftershocks. Victor Thorne was in the black sedan, dialing the number for his personal security team, his eyes fixed on the distant outline of the city lights. He had to beat the architect to Safehouse Gamma. He had to secure the final, deadly evidence of what he and Cassandra had done. He knew with absolute certainty that the next piece of audio would not only prove the conspiracy, but also ensure their mutual annihilation. The recording was not just leverage for the architect, it was Victor's self-destruction insurance. He intended to use it first. Victor connected the call to his head of security, his voice dry granite. Lockdown Safehouse Gamma, Priority 1. A single file. Chimera Protocol Final Draft. If it moves, you kill it. I'm 5 minutes out. He didn't wait for confirmation. He accelerated the sedan, the city lights blurring into streaks of neon and white. Time was a weapon, and he was using it to beat a clock he himself had set 10 years ago. He pulled the encrypted phone from the central console, pinging the audio feed. Static. Then the rhythmic, broken shh of Cassandra trying to normalize her breathing. The sound was a ghost whispering in his ear. Victor gripped the steering wheel harder. He needed to hear something, anything, to confirm that his gamble had paid off, that the ceramic mic was now recording her desperate countermove. Silence broke. A sharp intake of breath, not Cassandra's, a man's. Did he buy it? The voice was low, resonating with a cold, almost musical confidence. The architect. Victor's hands tightened on the wheel, knuckles white. The architect was inside the mansion. He hadn't just used Cassandra, he was there with her, collecting the pieces of the family he'd just shattered. Cassandra's voice, now steel, cut through the digital feed. He took the bait. Gamma is compromised, but he thinks he's running to the evidence. He thinks the leverage is still a single file. And Elijah, the architect asked. Elijah has the coordinates. He's already at the secondary extraction point. He is safe. The runaway baby was the distraction. The audio, that's the cleanup. Victor slammed his foot on the brake. The sedan fishtailed, tires screaming on the slick asphalt. He didn't care about the million-dollar wreckage. He was no longer 5 minutes from Safehouse Gamma. He was 1,000 miles from the truth. He ripped the phone from the console, holding it like a grenade. He could hear their footsteps now, moving through the echoing foyer. The mic had been left exactly where they wanted it. The cleanup, the architect repeated, the sound of a tumbler being placed on marble, echoing clearly. You let him believe the worst betrayal was you selling corporate secrets. He never considered the most dangerous asset was the one he built himself. He never considered that we knew about the Chimera insurance policy. Cassandra laughed, a short, dark sound that shredded the last 10 years of Victor's life. He had to be the first to move. His paranoia is what saved us, James. He had to believe I was desperate and exposed. He had to run to his insurance, the original Chimera Protocol file at Gamma, before you did. Victor's mind raced. James. The architect had a name. James. The name his wife had cried out in her sleep once, a decade ago. The architect continued, his voice heavy with finality. Project Chimera wasn't just a protocol to save a dying child. It was a fail-safe to guarantee the succession. Elijah, the millionaire baby, is now physically perfect, genetically augmented. But he is still his father's son. A man of Victor's bloodline will always be compromised by the need for control. We needed a clean slate. We needed Victor to take the fall for the original transgression. He kept the original physical files at Gamma, Cassandra whispered. He thought it was leverage against you. He thought if he secured it, The conspiracy would be his to control. He doesn't realize he's walking into the final stage of the protocol. The architect's voice moved closer to the ceramic mic. He will find the files. He will assume the police are coming for him and Cassandra. He will know the original crime, the illegal gene therapy, the stolen embryos, the decade of lies is about to be exposed. He will assume you betrayed him to save yourself, Cassandra. And then, the voice paused, a cold breath of anticipation, he will check the mic one last time for the sound of his own destruction. Victor stared at the phone. He was already at the sound of his destruction. He had to get to Gamma. He had to stop the final stage. He had to hear what the architect and his wife had engineered next. He engaged the throttle. The car surged forward, a dark arrow aimed at the safe house. The recording continued. Cassandra sounded relieved, finally free of the pretense. He destroyed the original flawed Victor Thorne. He is now only a memory, a loose end. Tell Elijah that I love him. Tell him the Thorne family line is secure now that the weakness has been removed. The architect scoffed. I will tell our son that his mother finally chose him. The phone slipped from Victor's grasp. It tumbled onto the passenger seat, the final words echoing, not just a betrayal, but an annulment of his entire life. Our son, Project Chimera, was not just about saving Elijah. It was about replacing Victor. James, the architect, was Elijah's biological father. Victor had not only financed the procedure to save the baby, but had inadvertently facilitated his wife's reunion with her true partner and the creation of a new, superior version of the child. The millionaire baby had run away because he was supposed to. It was the final trigger in a complex, decade-long plan to frame Victor Thorne. Victor arrived at Safe House Gamma. The building was a dark, reinforced bunker disguised as a warehouse. He didn't wait for his security team. He was operating on pure, distilled rage. He used the keypad, the heavy steel door sliding open with a groan of displaced air. The lobby was empty, the air cold. He moved through the hallways, a ghost hunting other ghosts. The evidence room was in the sub-basement. He ran, the phone still clutched in his hand, the live audio feed playing the silence of the abandoned mansion. The silence was louder than any threat. The door to the evidence room was unlocked. Victor kicked it open. The room was clean, clinical. In the center, on a steel table, was a single reinforced briefcase. Engraved on the lock, C. Thorne, Chimera Protocol, Final Draft. Victor didn't touch it. He knew it was a trap, the final stage. A light flickered on behind him. James, the architect, was leaning against the steel doorframe, a calm, almost apologetic look on his face. Victor, you were always punctual, James said, stepping into the room. He wasn't holding a weapon. He didn't need one. You knew I was coming here, Victor stated, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. Of course. This is the only place you hide the things you truly fear. And you fear the original crime most of all. You fear the details of what you authorized to save your son. James smiled. The details that make you a co-conspirator, Victor, not a victim. Cassandra simply played the part you assigned her 10 years ago, the frantic, loyal wife willing to do anything to save your legacy. Project Chimera was the price of admission. You funded the science, Victor. I designed the ethics. James walked slowly toward the table. She chose her son. She chose our son. Victor didn't move. He looked at the briefcase. What is the final stage? The final stage is the recording. Your paranoia was my gift, James said, pointing at the phone in Victor's hand. You recorded her, the broken wife, admitting the conspiracy, but you only got the first half. You missed the setup. James reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, flat ceramic device, identical to the one Victor had left on the mantel. I placed this one 10 minutes before I entered the house, James explained, his voice conversational. It was in the study, on your desk. It recorded Cassandra's breakdown. It recorded your accusation, and it recorded your final confession to her, the one where you outlined the Chimera files and admitted your culpability in the original illegal procedure. Victor felt the world tilt. The initial confession was the architect's insurance. His second confession, the one Victor hadn't known he'd made, was the architect's lever against the police. "Why Gamma?" Victor asked, barely a whisper. "Because the moment you open that briefcase, Victor, you touch the final evidence. It has your fingerprints, your DNA, and the moment the police breach the room, my ceramic mic, the one on your desk, will transmit a pre-recorded dialogue, a final conversation between you and Cassandra. A confession where you admit to stealing the files, framing Cassandra, and orchestrating Elijah's disappearance as a cover-up." "And the real evidence?" Victor asked, nodding toward the briefcase. "The briefcase is a decoy. It contains a single focused dose of fast-acting, untraceable poison. Open it, and you're dead. The police find you here, alongside the Chimera files and the final damaging audio. A suicide note, effectively. The media will run the story. Desperate millionaire kills himself, family destroyed by guilt." James picked up the briefcase and slid it across the table. It stopped inches from Victor's chest. "You lose the family, Victor, and I gain the one thing you took from me. The truth, the company, and my son. You gave me the perfect cover, the audio, the ultimate self-destruction insurance." Victor looked at the briefcase, then at the phone in his hand. The live feed from the mansion still played. The silent, empty, cold mansion. "You didn't need my death, James," Victor said. "You just needed the audio." James smiled. "I needed the perfect audio. And I have it. Goodbye, Victor." James turned and walked out of the room. Victor didn't move. He listened to the heavy steel door slide shut, the final cold click of the lock sealing him in. He heard the distinct sound of a siren in the distance. They were not his sirens. They were James's. Victor looked at the briefcase. He looked at the phone. He pressed the playback function on the audio feed. Cassandra's voice filled the confined room, clear and damning. He will find the files. He will assume the police are coming for him and Cassandra. He will know the original crime is about to be exposed. He will assume you betrayed him to save yourself. And then he will check the mic one last time for the sound of his own destruction. Victor Thorne, the man who had always controlled the narrative, was now locked in a box with the evidence of his own demise, the ultimate betrayal playing on loop. The millionaire baby was safe, the father was trapped, and the audio had secured the family's total annihilation. He did not open the briefcase. He put the phone on the table. He waited for the sirens to arrive. The audio had destroyed the family. Now it would end the man.